Yeah, so I, as pertinent as this issue is for everyone at the moment, really, just thought it might be helpful to spend just a bit of time thinking about how worrying about our finances can impact on our psychological well-being, and what we might be able to do to help a little with that. So I think it's really important initially to just make people aware that issues associated with money worries, financial worries, are a really common source of stress. It's certainly something that if you are experiencing, you are not experiencing this alone. In fact, the American Psychological Association recently reported that now 72% of adults in the US at the moment are reporting feeling very stressed about money, and that can be about whether or not people can pay bills, the debt they're in, whether they can afford basic household items, food, etc. So, you know, there is a real acknowledgement that this is a significant issue, and that is compounded by the fact that financial stress has been linked to so many health issues, not only psychological but also physical. And I will talk a little bit about how those may manifest in a moment. I did just want to say that debt advice is a regulated activity. So if anyone does seek psychological support or support managing anxiety associated with financial issues, that therapist will only be able to advise you in terms of how to manage your health and well-being. They won't be able to give you any debt advice. That must be done by somebody who is authorised by the Financial Conduct Authority. So, you know, I just wanted to let people know that in case people thought therapists were being avoidant, but yeah, we're just not trained to deliver debt advice per se. So when we think about what symptoms of worry about money might feel like, I mean, to be honest, they're likely to feel very similar to anxiety or worry that's triggered by anything else. However, I thought it would be useful to cover these a little bit, because when we're in our heads and when we're really concerned about very practical issues, we might not notice perhaps that we've got an increased heart rate, that we're experiencing perhaps some tightening of the chest, or just generally feeling a lot of tension, and this can be particularly noticeable in our necks and shoulders. We may feel breathless more often, although we're struggling to breathe, might have an increase in headaches, dizziness. We may feel very restless and find it quite difficult to sit down and relax, really lose ourselves in an activity we've previously enjoyed. We may find that we just can't relax enough to sleep, that we're feeling really demotivated, very lethargic. Sometimes people can notice that they actually feel physically sick. And like any sort of anxiety about money can manifest in a lot of different ways, depending on the individual. So for some people, that may be a complete loss of appetite and an inability to want to eat anything. For others, it may be an increase in appetite. But most of us have some idea about what kind of actions and behaviours and symptoms might for us be associated with worry and anxiety. So if you are worried about money or debt, any of that, it's worth checking in and just thinking, hold up, how am I feeling from an anxiety point of view about this? Because what's really difficult when we start to worry about finances and money is that there are often not any easy or quick solutions. There's been some really helpful advice from the preceding speakers today, and increasingly there is so much out there now. So you know, please do continue to try and access all support available. But thinking more broadly about how money worries might impact on our daily lives, we might start to notice things such as if we're in situations that perhaps remind us that we're struggling with money, like opening a bill, opening an envelope, or attending for a benefits assessment, or even a financial assessment. Any of those things might trigger feelings of anxiety or panic that perhaps we weren't quite expecting to manifest in that way. Worrying about money might result in wanting to sleep more. Like any sort of worry, again, sometimes we can just feel so overwhelmed by the thought of what we're concerned about, that the thought of literally pulling the duvet over our heads is very tempting. So also there's a sense of mental and emotional exhaustion that we might feel as a result from this continuing cycle of worry. And it just might be that we start to feel so removed from relaxed that we are not in a situation where we feel we can actually sleep or rest enough because we're constantly drained. And it's not just the psychological aspects of worry that finances cause either. You know, we might not actually be able to afford the things that allow us to stay well, and that could be housing. So that might be about not being able to put the heating on, keeping adequately warm. We might not be able to eat the right sort of nutritional food in the amounts we need. We may have a gym membership that we're no longer able to afford, or it might be that we can no longer afford our medications, dentists, or therapy. And so a lot of those could have a real impact on not just psychological health, but also on our physical well-being. And another area in which sometimes people aren't aware that money problems can impact on is about our social lives and our relationships. So many of us are in social groups with people who are invite us out. Do you fancy doing this? Do you fancy doing that? Or let's split the bill. And it means that a lot of people who are starting to struggle financially might have to decline social events that they would usually attend. And this can lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness, and also, you know, conversations about, oh, I can't really afford to do that, or I don't want to split the bill, can be really shaming to us personally to have. So a lot of those conversations aren't had, and just we withdraw instead, and this can have a really negative impact on our mood and our connection and relationship with others. And one of the really common psychological processes that we tend to go through, particularly with something as pertinent as finances, is that we will often go to worst case scenarios. So that almost that train of thought with regards to, well, if I can't afford this, then this is going to have to go, and then that's going to result to that. And before we know it, we're living in our head through that worst case scenario, and that can be incredibly anxiety provoking. And then there's also this tendency we have as human beings to think about how we could have done things differently if we'd have known that there was going to be this increase in energy prices or a whole host of other things. But again, it's worth reminding ourselves that none of us are fortune tellers, that, you know, we tend to go through life doing the best we can with the information we've got in the moment we're in. So again, it's be very mindful of not beating ourselves up about how we could have done things differently a couple of years ago if we'd have known that we were going to have this whole host of difficulty to deal with. We may not start to notice that we feel very low, feel very depressed, and that we've got feelings such as shame or guilt or embarrassment. And that's why I really wanted to highlight at the start of this presentation that, you know, the financial issues that people are in at the moment are as no result of something that they are doing wrong or they haven't planned adequately for. You know, for the majority of working and non-working age adults now, we are just struggling with the fact that COVID over the last few years has had a knock-on impact on productivity and the cost of shipping things around the world. Then on top of that, we have had the results of the ongoing pandemic and the fact that all of that was preceded by austerity. Then there's a war with Russia and Ukraine, and then we have the current energy crisis as a result of that. There is just so much that is out of our control, and we need to hold on to that this isn't about something that we need to be embarrassed about. You know, we and a lot of others are really struggling now. And you know, those kind of feelings can also exacerbate whether or not we feel that we want to get on with our usual activities. And social isolation by choice sometimes is what happens because we just don't feel motivated enough to want to be with people, and then we start to actively avoid people. And avoidance is very, very common. It's a common way many of us cope in any anxiety-provoking situation because it provides instant relief from the thing that's difficult usually. However, it really is worth remembering that avoidance is just a temporary fix, and that the thing, whatever it is we are avoiding, won't go away. And the more we avoid it, the more anxious we may feel about dealing with it. And certainly going on to the avoidance cycle, when we think about how that might look with regards to our money. So we receive a bill through the post, for example, or an email alert. We panic. We physically put the bill in the drawer, or we delete the email, or we close down our browser. And we instantly feel relief. Yeah, don't have to think about that anymore. That's gone for this moment. However, what happens as a result of that is the debt is likely to increase. We're likely to receive a reminder. We're likely to experience increased panic, and so on. So avoidance is definitely not the best strategy, usually in any anxiety provoking situation, but certainly with regards to our finances. The thing that I hear time and time again is get help. Let people know if you are struggling to pay any of your bills, because as all of the speakers have just said, that there are some schemes out there that you probably don't know about that may actually be able to help significantly in the situation. That being said, there's going to be lots and lots of times when we do feel anxious about finances, and particularly when we are faced with undertaking some of the tasks that we've been avoiding. So I certainly know through conversations I've had with people recently who have had to apply for benefits for the first time, or who have started to have a financial assessment. They're saying, you know, they feel so nervous and overwhelmed by it, and they don't really know why that is. I think it's always helpful to have a bit of context. So when we enter any kind of dangerous situation, our fight-flight response is triggered. And, you know, this is our natural response that has allowed our prehistoric ancestors to fight or escape a dangerous situation, like being attacked by a wild animal, for example. However, it's worth noting that in modern day lives, our bodies respond to a perceived or psychological threat in exactly the same way. So although these psychological threats will look very different for everyone, it could be you know, how we respond to finding a loss of income or an increased debt or an inability to be able to purchase something that we need. And it's really difficult to stop this response because it is an automatic response. However, what we can do in those moments is try and control our breathing. This is one of the quickest ways to calm and counteract the fight-flight response and help us feel less anxious. And so I've included just at the end of this slide here a really, really simple breathing technique, which is just about slowing down the speed of the breath and increasing the depth. So inhaling through your nose for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling through the mouth for 6 seconds, holding that for a couple of seconds, and then just running through that technique 5 to 10 times. And I mean, don't get too caught up in the number of seconds. Very basically, what we're aiming for is to slow down the breathing. So inhale and hold. Ideally, exhale longer than the inhale. And if we can do that out of the mouth, we really get a deeper sense of letting it go. And most of us do that when we're coming down from stress anyway. And at least in the moment, that may feel calming enough to allow you to think, right, yes, you know, let's get this financial assessment done. Let me have a quick look at what bills are outstanding. And you know, no matter how many times during the day, if you do feel like you have your anxiety building up again, just checking in can really help. I've included on the end of the slide 2 pages of resources, which do include an actual money toolkit that you can go through yourself, that will ask you about triggers and you know, doing some calculations. There's some really good information on mind.org and Very Well Mind. There's some debt and money management advice there, and also the Samaritans and Shout, both mental health services that have got numbers that are UK wide. And I finished off as usual with the contact details for myself, Sam, and our colleague Samina, who are all in the outreach branch of the hub at present. Happy to help in whatever way we can, really. And I'd just like to encourage you all to take care and be kind to yourselves. And I'll hand back over to my colleague Sam.